Hey guys, welcome back to We Watch Movie. I am Mike. Thanks for taking a moment of your day to spend it with me, and we're talking Scream 7 this time. We're getting a little bit deep. There's so much more to cover about Scream 6, and we will as we go along. But now we're starting to also question, hey, what the hell's next, Jimbo Johnson? I'm ready to put some stuff up in me. That sounded really weird, and I didn't mean for it to sound that way. But my point is this: where will Scream 7 take place? So I put this up on Twitter just for fun, like, hey, so the original Scream, obviously Woodsboro, then they went to Windsor College in Ohio, then they went to Hollywood in Scream 3, back to Woodsboro, and now in the fifth one, back in Woodsboro. The sixth one is in New York City. As we know, where will the seventh one go? We're going to talk about some stuff that ties into the story and what would make sense for the story, and we're also going to talk about just some fun stuff. And also, by the way, new merch, Sydney. I made some new shirts. They got our logo on the front, and they got maybe my favorite all-time Scream quote on them from Dewey on the back.
How do you know that my dim-witted inexperience isn't merely a subtle form of manipulation used to lower people's expectations, thereby enhancing my ability to effectively maneuver within any given situation?
We got shirts, hoodies, different color sizes, women's shirts, all that stuff. There's a link down below to our merch store if you want to check those out. It's in the description box. The first question we have to ask ourselves is it a good idea for the franchise to go to another new place at all? Because as fun as it was to go to New York, and the Scream franchise has been a couple different places, my ice maker just scared the fuck out of me. Should they either definitely keep it in New York or go back to Woodsboro? Because you don't want like a Carmen Sandiego franchise where each time they have to go somewhere new and crazy and different. That's an interesting thing to think about in itself, but we'll get into more of that stuff. The number one answer I got from you guys on Twitter: space. There is no other place for it to go. Take it to space or shut your fucking hole. Obviously, everybody's joking. That would be the end of the franchise for sure. Once a franchise goes to space, it might as well go to the porta potty, man, because it ain't coming back. Jason withstanding. Imagine a Ghostface on a giant spaceship hunting down his crew where there's no place you can escape to, hunting him down Event Horizon Sunshine style. But also, let's take a look at where our characters are in the real world here. So we're in New York City at the end of this, and Scream spoilers, Scream 6 spoilers, I should say, are going to probably sneak through in this video. So they're in New York still. Tara just started college. Several of them just started college. Sam's the only one not in college. That awkward moment. She's like, what are you even doing here? You got a shitty job you don't even like. Our pets' heads are falling off. I got robbed by a sweet old lady on a shopping cart. Didn't even see it coming. What movie is that from? Comment down below. That's the easy one. You give him all the easy ones. What's that from? All right, I'm done with the movie quotes. So we leave them and they're still in New York, but I think there's a very poignant moment where at the end of all that, when they sit down and Sam is like, Tara, are you okay? And she's like, no, I'm fucking not. Thank you for asking. I'm not fine at all. So you have one or two options here, and one is stay in New York City, but that felt like a specific thing to that movie, Another option they could do is they could stay in New York and they could stay at the college, but they could go all in on the college setting. We didn't really see them much at the dorm or anything like that, really taking classes and stuff like that. So they could kind of switch the perspective, keep it in New York, but focus on the university, focus on them in class, going to school, kind of taking it back in a weird way to Scream 1 and 2. Scream 2 did show them at the college a lot. Scream 1 obviously showed them in high school, but you could do a mix of that and do that, and I'd be fine with that as well. I gotta think they're gonna go away from it. I really do, and I think maybe the way to do that is to be they're all really fucked up from this, as Tara specifically is not ready to go like take fucking calculus or whatever she's in. When I went to college, I was still in algebra because I'm a fucking idiot, and that's why I do YouTube today. I lasted like 6 weeks. I wasn't made to be a business manager, Dad. Option 2, what if they just went back to Woodsboro? I mean, that's a pretty simple thing, but they would have to have a reason to go specifically back to Woodsboro, especially with the past and everything that's happened. I don't want the franchise to abandon Woodsboro because it's so important to the series, but also they would need a specific reason. There's no way in my mind that this cast would want to go back to Woodsboro because that's a specific place that they were trying to get away from. And then the third thing I want to talk about, what about Sydney? Now, this is a crazy theory. We were doing the live stream spoiler stream the other day, and it was a really fun time. And someone brought it up, and I thought about it. I thought, what about this? Like, there is a chance here, and I'm not saying they should do it because we're very invested in the core 4 and everything going on there. But say Neve Campbell does sign on to do a new Scream movie and to be the face of that Scream movie. What if the franchise really departed from what they're doing right now and just went to where Sydney is, either where she left to go into hiding kind of with Mark and the kids? I wouldn't call it hiding. I would just call it getting the fuck out of here before Ghostface kills my kids. It's not like she was in Whitsick. But wherever Sydney is, what if the franchise took a pivot, went really back into the old school, and followed Sydney to wherever she is? And this new Ghostface, or maybe Stu, who knows, specifically wants to find her. And whether you bring in the core four or not, the movie mainly follows her and her plight. And what if you really just hone in on Sydney specifically? Now, a big theory from people is that, look, Scream 5 replicated Scream 1 in a lot of ways. Scream 6 replicated Scream 2. And there's so many parallels between Scream 2 and Scream 6. So a lot of people say, hey, let's go to Hollywood, right? The seventh movie should parallel Scream 3. I don't personally think this is going to happen. And here's why. Because Scream 1 and Scream 2 are the beacons of the franchise for most. And I feel like Scream 3 is a low point for most. So I have a hard time believing that they would actually want to go back into the Scream 3 territory. As much as the first two were odes to those first two films, I don't know if Scream 3 has enough in it. And I've learned to like it over the years. I've learned to really appreciate it when I used to dislike it. I do, but I don't know if they want to go back into that territory. And they could even throw some meta commentary about that in the movie, about nobody's going to copy the third film in the franchise. So it's going to be something different this time. There's a lot of traces that would tell you they could go back to Hollywood for this. And maybe, I don't want to see them do that, to be honest with you, because what I learned to love about Scream 3 in the end was that the stuff with our main characters. I was never a fan of the actors portraying them in the stab movies, and I thought we went way off course with that stuff. But I always loved the stuff between Dewey, Gale, and Sidney in that movie. You know, I'm just not that interested in going to Hollywood and redoing the Scream 3 thing personally myself. But there's a lot of people who say, hey, what about the Stu theory? Roman being the singular dude, they could do that with Stu this time. Now that I'm into, you got me going. You put a feather up my butt and tickled it. I'm not saying that's what gets me going. I've never had that happen before. I haven't had that happen since Mexico, and I've never been to Mexico. They just don't have the regulations. And another thing that ties into the storylines is, what about Atlanta? Kirby was from Atlanta. The first two killers from the beginning, they said they met at school in Atlanta. So that's another setting we can go to. Or you could go another big city like Chicago or something like that. But to me, honestly, like, we did the city thing with New York. So I feel like you either stay in New York, the biggest city of all. Just going to a different city would just kind of feel like the same, especially since it was filmed not actually in New York, but in Canada or whatever. So that is one idea, though. It does tie into the storylines. One of the funnest ones I saw you guys bring up, and I won't post them here because I don't know if people want their faces and whatever in the videos and stuff like that. But again, you can check it out on the Twitter. There's some awesome ideas and some cool conversation going on there for sure. But one of the funnest ideas I saw people bring up was, what about, like, in so many words, what if it picks up where it left off? Our core four are going back to Woodsboro, or either to Woodsboro or they're going somewhere new, and Ghostface is chasing them like road trip style. Imagine Ghostface immediately on the hunt. They're moving. They've got to go to airports. They've got to get on planes and stuff like that. So either Ghostface in an airport in one scene, pretty fucking interesting. Ghostface in a plane, Ray Liotta turbulent style, really interesting to me, and I feel like that would really throw a whole new layer into the franchise. It's one of my favorite picks out of this. All right, so we've talked about some of the story points and where the story could go, but let's just talk about, for fun, some stuff you would want to see aside from Ghostface in space. Like, what stuff do you want to see in the franchise? When do we see Jamie Lee's breasts? And again, this whole section here is going to come with the caveat of, like, should we Carmen Sandiego this bitch and really be jumping around locations, because it's going to set a precedent. And is that a good thing to do with the franchise or not? I don't know. But just for fun's sake, talking about it, some cool ideas people brought up. New Orleans, imagine Ghostface during Mardi Gras. I think the person who said this, like, every time he stabs someone, he gets beads. But that's a setting with a bunch of people around partying and Ghostface appearing on balconies and shit like that. Imagine him throwing a dead body off a roof into a crowd of people. Someone said, what about a cruise ship? And immediately you think, are you talking about Speed 2 fucking cruise control? Goddamn Jason Patrick. It didn't work that time. It's not going to work this time. People don't work on boats. Like Ghostface on a cruise, it sets up some really gnarly and cool ideas. I kind of love it a little bit. One idea I kind of thought of that would be really fun, because you could make a bunch of Dawn of the Dead references and stuff like that, is at least have a scene set up in a mall of some sort. That would be pretty neat. Maybe do it during Christmas, which is a big popular idea on there, was Ghostface in the snow. We've always wanted to see Jason in the snow because it just makes sense because of his location. I know Never Hike Alone did it as well, which is really cool. But like Ghostface in the snow is pretty interesting too. Ghostface during Christmas is really interesting. If you did a Christmas Scream movie, I'm fucking in on that shit. And they would give him a little bit more time to film too. You know, maybe it's next December or something like that. Another thing someone brought up that was really cool is, what if Ghostface had a white robe? Like, I know it sounds weird and it might tickle you the wrong way in the wrong places, like somewhere uncomfortable, like the backseat of a Volkswagen. But imagine Ghostface in the snow with a white robe coming at you. It's kind of freaky to think about a little bit. And even if you didn't go the white robe route, then you could at least do Ghostface in Christmas. You could show some Ghostface in the snow. There's a bunch of meta references you could do to stuff like Black Christmas and other Christmas horror movies. They could have a fucking field day with that shit. And then there's the idea of anywhere really abroad. And 3C, Chris Parker brought up a really interesting point here. They do mention Sam and Tara's mom is abroad in London on business. Her and Neil fucking Prescott in cahoots. Always stand at those Marriotts by the goddamn airport. We know what you're up to, Neil. But a bunch of us think that the mom has got to tie in somewhere. I mean, she was mentioned in the Scream 5 script, but not shown. They could have just pulled her out for time, or maybe they thought, hey, there's something here for later on. But think about the interesting settings they could have. Ghostface in Paris, the Eiffel Tower, Ghostface in London. You sound like you're from London! Ghostface in Tokyo is one of my favorites. That would just look cool as shit. I think some of these are ideas for future parts of the franchise. Maybe after we get done with the core 4 and we tell this story, what if someone just tells a brand new story with total brand new characters and you set it in Tokyo or something like that? But what if they go to study abroad? They say, hey, you know what? Let's get even further the fuck away and let's go study abroad, Tokyo, Italy, someplace like that. And then Ghostface follows them there. They're like, God damn, I can't get away from this fucker. Travelocity is so easy, anyone can use it. And welcome to today's sponsor. I'm kidding. One of my favorite ideas, by the way, was the tropical setting idea. Now, I know I Still Know What You Did Last Summer did this, but honestly, it's one of the best parts about that movie. And horror movies don't use that locale enough. And all I can think about right now is Ghostface in a Hawaiian t-shirt. But whether it's spring break or whatever, Hawaii, I don't know. The idea of it being in a tropical location, though it does have parallels to I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, is that not perfect for a meta movie that's referencing other movies? They could have a lot of fun with that. Hell, maybe you do both. You take a cruise, and then when it gets to where it's going, then Ghostface attacks in a tropical island. That's a twofer. A big choice was Las Vegas. Ghostface in Las Vegas, Sin City. There's so many lines and things they could do with that. Oh, and back to the Ghostface in the snow thing. One point I want to make. My friend Julianne here made a really great point. She's an awesome writer, by the way. Check her out. She made a great point. Even if he was wearing the black robe in the snow, could you imagine it glistening, or even the Christmas lights like off of that shiny ass robe, how cool he would look in certain scenes? I'm really liking the idea of this. And then finally, lastly, just a little idea. What about a cabin in the woods somewhere? It's a horror trope. You could throw in 1,000 meta references, Evil Dead, all that stuff. The only thing here is maybe it's been done too many times. You already got Jason, Friday the 13th, Crystal Lake, all that stuff like that. Evil Dead. It's been done so many times. Maybe it'd be too much. What about a ski lodge or something like that? Best of both. You got the woods, you got the snow, you could do Christmas. That's a threefer. Triple kill. Thrice. Good band. But yeah, that's it, guys. A bunch of fun stuff that came from you guys on Twitter that was really fun to talk about. And I'm very excited to see what they do with this new setting. If they use a new one, or if they stick in New York, or they do whatever this. What do you guys want to see? What's your favorite idea on this list? Comment down below. I want to know all your ideas and your fixins. And don't forget to check out those sweet new Dewey Quote shirts. Again, in the link below. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. So much Scream content coming. I love your fucking faces, Sydney. Halloween never ends, suck my fucking dick, and I don't really care what Blumhouse fucking says. Put him in a box, or suck a fucking cock. You can say he's dead, but we all know he's not, yeah. So let's go trick-or-treating, let's go fucking drinking. Let's all go rent Pumpkinhead on VHS. Cause Halloween never ends, Halloween never ends, Halloween never ends, yeah.